Then there's the bumper sticker obsessed. Now I say bumper lightly because these people ran out of bumper 33 stickers ago. Now the wisdom stretches across windows, doors, and possibly the front windshield. Coexist, my kids on honor roll, I break for tofu, not to mention campaign stickers for a candidate who lost 3 elections ago, but we're still waiting for a recount. Don't we think the name Mr. Fantastic is just a little pretentious? How about more of a Paul Rudd type of character, Mr. Mildly Affable? Sounds much more modern. Which one of these ill-fated promotions led to a huge financial loss and the resignation of a company president? A. Coca-Cola's Magic Cans in 1990, and a little gift came out. Popped them.
I don't remember that at all.
B. Red Lobster's Endless Crab promotion in 2003. C. Build-A-Bear's Pay Your Age promotion in 2018. Or D. Bloomingdale's Spike Your Best Friend's Eggnog promotion in 2015.
And Galactus. I mean, I get devouring all of Earth's natural resources. But did you have to eat my nachos too? Man, they were from Fridays. How am I supposed to DoorDash it from 4 galaxies away?
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll podcast.
Episode 17. Wow.
So exciting news as I'm sporting my spoils from Maryland Doomfest. Hopefully we'll get to find out more about
Great
that
band.
Sonolith
Great band. Yeah.
out of Nevada. Las
Bands that were the best at Maryland Doomfest to me were Sonolith, Faith and Jane.
Faith and Jane were awesome. Vanishing Kids rock.
Vanishing Kids were great. And of course, Legions of Doom
Legions of
slash The Skull. Yeah. Quite a few.
Moonsinger.
Moonsinger.
Was
Yeah.
great.
They were like the sleeper. They were from Baltimore.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be bringing more to you. And exciting news, even though they said this was the final Doomfest, festivals just don't die.
Yeah.
They're posted that there's going to be exciting news coming next March. So
I'm feeling
to find out.
maybe the venue will change, but I have a feeling it's not going to die. So
Yeah, venue town, I'm not sure which, but I think there will be another Maryland Doomfest. Even if they skip a year, I don't know, because March is kind of late to announce for June, but maybe.
And speaking of things that never die, I was shocked when I saw the ad that they have made another Fantastic Four movie.
I think there's more Fantastic Fours than remakes of Annie.
How many bad reboots of this comic do we have to endure? The Fantastic Four are the Cheetos lip balm of the comic movie realm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is about them that doesn't translate into film. Is it the 4 dorky uniforms? The fact that one minute they're fighting for survival of the planet, and the next, one of them is complaining the coffee is too strong. Is it that the Thing character looks like he's made out of granola?
Don't we think the name Mr. Fantastic is just a little pretentious? How about more of a Paul Rudd type of character, Mr. Mildly Affable? Sounds much more modern. How come they never explored the pornographic possibilities of Dr. Stretchman?
I could have a whole nother hero-gasm out of that one.
They could have let off with that.
Is it possible that Mr. Clean is actually the Sulfur Surfer with earrings?
Could be. I used to read the comics back when I was a kid, and they were actually pretty good. They would all rag on each other. Ben's uglier than a possum's behind in a unitard. That's it. You're fighting the next giant centipede we come across, you brat. And then the Silver Surfer would show up, and he would talk so well. He would say things like, "Nay, in this obtuse realm, the power of truth is supremely credible." And the others would be like, "Dang, son, you sure talk funny."
Man, I tried to watch that one that came out. What was it, like 15 years ago? Let me say that a movie is bad when Jessica Alba popping up naked can't save it.
Yeah, that's true.
The dialogue is horrendous, and the plot has more holes than you could fit Galacticus into.
I think they should change it to the Facetious Four. A giant what is heading for the Earth? Christ, when you said meteor, I thought we were talking about the cheeseburgers. I assumed Dr. Doom was short for Dr. Dombrowski, so he's not actually a podiatrist? What am I going to do about these corns?
And Galactus. I mean, I get devouring all of Earth's natural resources. But did you have to eat my nachos too? Man, they were from Fridays. How am I supposed to DoorDash it from 4 galaxies away?
Problem, yeah. I mean, if we're going to do a retro reboot, how about one that actually kicked ass? The Herculoids. Okay, they were a power husband and wife team. The uber muscly Xandor and his sexy wife Tara. Who needs last names? And they were fighting cosmic ne'er-do-wellers with their awesome creature pets.
Zoc, a bat-winged laser dragon,
Yeah.
Egu, an infallible ape-like creature made of rock. Tundro, a 10-legged, 4-horned triceratops that can shoot explosive energy rocks from his horns.
Yeah.
And just when you think there's no comic relief, and of course, Gloop and Gleep, the Blobo sidekicks who absorb lasers and comedic tension with equal finesse. Basically the Laurel and Hardy of the sentient silly putty.
They kept the planet Amzot safe of evil scientists, giant robots, raider apes, and even phone solicitors. Although I think that one was Japanese only episode. You never heard Xandar complaining about the paparazzi or Trundro developing an eating disorder. They just kicked ass and then shook the dirt out of their pauldrons and closed every episode with a puzzling joke of some kind.
And when Xandor makes a pun like, looks like it was time for Egu to take a swim.
Ha, ha, ha,
The whole
ha,
gang laughed like it was the peak of humor. And you sit there thinking, wait, was that a joke? Yes, yes, it was. Now close your mouth and clap. The Herculoids are heroes.
Absolutely. Okay, want to talk about our feature interview?
Our feature interview this week is with Dan Thomson, singer and guitarist for the exciting new Toronto post-hardcore band lowheaven. We have a great chat with Dan about the lockdown-inspired inception of the band, the crazy process of recording the debut in a church with a steady diet of horror movies and vegan food. We get into the horror of Canadian residential schools, as well as his passion for coffee and the fear of the dentist, so stay tuned for that.
Okay, let's kick it off with some low heaven. This is Chemical Pattern. Okay, let's talk about Patreon. The site is patreon.com/snaggletoothpodcast. And for $6.66 a month, you get a wheelbarrow with a dangerously low amount of air in the tires full of market Stace.
Yes, thank you for becoming a patron. And in return, we give you exclusive content only available to our patrons. We have tons of things up there from book reviews, music reviews. We have recipes, lots of
Potting
good ones.
plants and hot pants. Yeah.
Can't miss that.
Just put up a feature on the top or the first 3 I Hate God albums, ranked which one is the best. You might be surprised. Head over to Patreon and check it out. Also, don't forget to check out our other show, the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast, and then that way you will never miss a week of Mark and Stace.
Yeah, in case you missed the pattern, we alternate weeks between the 2 shows. So if you would like us every week, follow both podcasts. Even if you don't like the music, I guarantee you'll like us. So you got that.
That's right. And getting a bit of a cold chill now because I
God.
think it's time.
I need a sip of coffee.
Hit it.
And now it's time for Obnoxious Trivia!
Okay. Obnoxious Trivia. Tried to keep it topical. I even have a 4th of July related question.
After watching 1776 for a break.
Okay, question number 1. Blossom, a cow from Orangeville, Illinois, holds the record for the tallest cow ever recorded. On the other hand, Blaze, a zebu cow from Sanford, Florida, was the shortest. What are the heights of these cows? A. Blossom was 6'2" and Blaze 2'3". B. Blossom was 7'8" and Blaze was 1'9". Blossom was 5'10" and Blaze was 3'4". Or D. Blossom was 8'3" and Blaze was 4 foot even.
Trying to think of when I used to go to the state fair and pet cows. And they were definitely taller than me.
Most things are taller.
So they got to be over 5 foot, but 7 foot and 8 foot seems kind of ridiculous for a cow. So I'm going to go with A. Blossom was 6'2".
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. You got it. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. 6'2" is pretty freaking big for a cow. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I could reach their heads, but I had to reach up. So I'm
Yeah.
figuring an average state fair cow is probably about 5.5 feet.
I think both cows are dead now.
Oh.
But anyway. Or maybe they're cheeseburgers. I don't know. But anyway. All right. Number 2. According to the National Hot Dog and Sausage Council, of which I'd love to be a part, how many pounds of hot dogs do citizens of Los Angeles typically consume on the 4th of July every year?
Is this before or after Harvey sings his hot dog song?
I guess before.
Is
Okay.
this just on the 4th? Jesus.
Just on the 4th, just Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
A, 5 million pounds. B, 7 million pounds. C, 15 million pounds. Or D, 30 million pounds.
A lot of hot dogs and sausages. Los Angeles, I don't think would be as big a hot dog and sausage place as, say, Chicago. So I'm going to go with B, 7 million.
I'm sorry, it's actually 30 million.
My God.
Crazy, yeah. Gluttony. Yeah. 30 million pounds. Just so how much could it be like in the whole United States? Can you imagine how many hot dogs?
God.
That's just LA. Anyway. Okay. Obnoxious Trivia number 3. Which one of these ill-fated promotions led to a huge financial loss and the resignation of a company president? A. Coca-Cola's Magic Cans in 1990, and a little gift came out. Popped them.
I don't remember that at all.
B. Red Lobster's Endless Crab promotion in 2003. C. Build-A-Bear's Pay Your Age promotion in 2018. Or D. Bloomingdale's Spike Your Best Friend's Eggnog promotion in 2015.
I don't think Bloomingdale sells booze, so I'm going to go no on that. Build-A-Bear was expensive as hell. Red Lobster always has endless something. All right, I'm going to go with Build-A-Bear's Pay Your Age promotion.
All of these were real,
Really?
but it's actually B. Red Lobster woefully underestimated how much crab people would eat, and that crab is not very filling.
Oh.
They lost so much money that the president of the company resigned
Wow.
over crab.
And they still do endless shrimp and stuff.
I think they tried endless shrimp and made money, and then they went to endless crab, and they were like, holy shit. We cannot afford to do this. Yeah, the Magic Cans thing didn't go. All of these were bad. The Bloomingdale's thing was actually a misprint in the newspaper. Or, well, it was printed in the newspaper. They thought it was funny. People did not. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. And when the Build-A-Bear thing was just lines out the door, they couldn't keep up with the demand. Pay your age. I'm too.
They always got you would Build-A-Bear with the outfits because you had to have the matching shoes and you could get out of
Accoutrements, yeah.
$100 on the frickin' wardrobe of your bear.
Okay. Number 4. According to the 24 fandom page, how many people did Jack Bauer kill on the show?
Lord.
A, 51, B, 309, C, 412, or D, 127?
Oh, he killed a lot of people. Sometimes more than one per episode. I'll go with B, 309. Sounds like a good round figure.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So you were 50% this time. Very good for Obnoxious Trivia. Okay. I originally was trying to find out how many fingers he cut off, but they don't have that level of detail. He was always getting out the cigar thing and cutting off. I think he cut off the president's fingers at some point.
Wow.
Anyway, this has been Obnoxious Trivia. Okay, it's time for our Snaggletoon. And this week we're going to call it It's in the Details.
What does a person's attitude towards their car say about them? You'd be surprised. Results vary from complete indifference to obsessive compulsive to, plushy?
First, you've got the shrine keepers. Now, these are the people that treat their car like it's a holy sanctuary. Every weekend, they're out there waxing it with Scandinavian cheesecloth and unicorn tears.
Typically, they'll only park in tree-free areas and take up to 4 parking spots. But in the rare case that a bird poop hits the hood, just one tail lift, and they sprint out with armor all like it's a radioactive fallout. No, not my clear coat. It's like witnessing the nervous breakdown in real time, but shinier.
Then there's the bumper sticker obsessed. Now, I say bumper lightly because these people ran out of bumper 33 stickers ago. Now the wisdom stretches across windows, doors, and possibly the front windshield. Coexist, my kid's on honor roll, I break for tofu, not to mention campaign stickers for a candidate who lost 3 elections ago, but we're still waiting for a recount.
One is literally just a QR code to their Etsy candle shop. And there's always that one passive aggressive gem. If you're gonna ride my ass, at least buy me dinner. Do I care about how many stick figures are in your family? No, not really, my friend.
You know who's coming next. The plushy people. You see that car and think Toys R Us has risen and it's decided to possess this car.
Every square inch smothered in beanie babies, troll dolls, plastic dinosaurs, some haunted Cabbage Patch monstrosity clinging to the antenna like it's seen too much. There's an entire rogue Pez army on the roof, probably planning a coup. And I'm like, did you win every game at the state fair and just glue your prizes to the chassis? Mick Nightmare.
You know they used industrial strength 3M plastic to metal adhesive too. Like 3M literally makes a glue just for this. Somebody in a lab coat said, there is a demand for gluing rubber ducks to a Buick. Let's give the people what they want.
Typically, the owner that goes this route is not going to have some fancy garage to house this work of art on wheels. You can't take it through a car wash. You can't even hose it down. And when it rains, I don't know, maybe they just accept the soggy sadness and let the beanie babies mold into some kind of plush fungus.
Always wondered about those company vehicles with the loud, colored wrap over the entire body. Rockstar Energy Drink, Baskin Robbins, Anytime Fitness, a billboard with wheels, and I guess it would be a cool company car until you have to go pick up your date and you pull up in a car wrapped with the Extends logo and the caption, size does matter. Awkward.
Now, don't forget the rust buckets, a statement that just says, here I am, fuck it all, take me as I am. The jalopies. The cars where you can literally see the pavement through a hole in the floor like it's a Flintstone reboot. They're held together with duct tape and clothes hangers with at least one trash bag for a window. Ironically, this guy's bumper sticker says, I did it my way.
Then there's the DIY paint people. You know the ones, neon chartreuse, electric purple. I once saw a car that looked like Jackson Pollock and Lisa Frank got into a glitter-fueled slap fight. Sparkles, decals, bedazzling, flames, always flames. Like if you paint your car fast, maybe people won't notice it's a 2003 PT Cruiser with a cracked muffler so loud it vibrates nose hairs. But hey, at least you'll never lose it in the parking lot.
So whether your car is a pristine showroom queen, a plushy apocalypse, a rusty death trap, or an interpretive art project, you do. We see you. I mean, how could we not? You've become the talk of the town. Love it or hate it. That's commitment to chaos. And honestly, respect you for getting up and choosing bold.
All right, I can't take anymore. Let's play another song. This is Low Heaven with Mercy Death. Okay, let's talk about imperfect foods. And I believe we have a cooler of such.
Imperfect foods, we just got delivered Wednesday, so therefore most of the snacks and cheese are gone. I had to replenish the cheese today. But we do have some things. They are a wonderful grocery service that brings things from around the world to your door, delivered in ice. They have everything from snacks to cheese to meats to produce to wine to drinks. You name it, pantry staples, anything you would find in a grocery store, and some things you wouldn't find in your local grocery store.
A lot of things you wouldn't. They don't sell truffle fries.
Fries are long gone, sorry.
They never stood a chance.
They have lovely things like slightly scarred zucchinis that you can veggetti your ass off.
Is that a cucumber or is it zucchini?
It's
Is it a
zucchini.
zucchini? Is it? Okay. Good for scaring cats, too.
This week I got some bok choy. And I also actually already used some of this. This is a sweet and sour sauce. It was so easy. All I had to do was cut up my vegetables. I threw in some shrimp I also got from Imperfect, which was already, they were uncooked, but it was, shelled, payless. How easy is this? Throw in some sauce. You got yourself a 4th of July Oriental thing, because that's what everybody
That's
does
right.
on the 4th of July.
That's right. It was very patriotic.
They've got lovely vibes.
Cherry tomato.
cherry tomatoes. Neat things again, this is something you wouldn't see. This is a garlic spread. You can use this as a dip. You can use this in cooking.
Keep away
put it on
vampires.
crackers,
Yeah.
Keep away vampires. Lots of interesting things you can do with this. Again, not something you might see everywhere. I usually get the free bok chorizo, but this is actually the sausage links.
Mhm.
Might make these up tomorrow. What do you say?
Chorizo is my weakness. It's my kryptonite. I can't sleep with it in the house.
Small family like us, you might like something like this rather than a big butterball. This is a small Cornish hen.
It's just enough to cut in half, and she and I can each take to work.
Yeah, and I think this was only like $5 for this
Yep.
Cornish hen. Also, I used our points to buy him a meat snick snack, and this is some ground lamb.
Hmm.
Again, not something you might see at your local
Giant.
but also lamb is very low in fat.
Very high in taste. I love it.
Okay. So use our link. It will save you off your first order, and you too can get all your groceries delivered to your door.
Very good. Okay. Collecturbation time. Good one this week. A forgotten classic from Angel Witch, Frontal Assault. Now, a lot can change in the space of 6 years, even in a genre as supposedly ungimmicky as heavy metal music. 1980 was a monstrous year for the genre, in no small part due to the new wave of British heavy metal, a movement that ultimately resulted in two bona fide powerhouse monikers, Maiden and Leopard, a handful of unrewarded hopefuls, and a ton of cool collectible singles. Angel Witch from Swinging London formed in the late 70s, and they were one of the bands that did everything right until they needed to. The trio of Kevin Hayborn on guitar and vocals, Kevin Riddles on bass, and Dave Hogg on drums seemed like they could do no wrong in the early days, gigging relentlessly, dropping several collectible demos with a unique blend of doomy metal riffs and occult lyrics. They appeared on some legendary compilations like Metal from Others, and were even invited to lay down a session of the Friday Rock Show in 1980.
Eventually, they attracted the attention of Bronze Records, who ushered them into the studio to record their self-titled debut, which was released at the tail end of 1980. Just as sales began to mount and dates were booked to begin promoting the new album, the lineup shuffling began. I don't understand why this seems to happen always at the worst time for bands like these. Drummer Dave Hogg left and was replaced by a much older stickman, Dave Dufort. At that point, Bronze seemed to lose all interest in the band as gigs dried up after their 1981 EP, Give It Some Tickle. Wasn't that a Squeeze song?
Yeah.
It showed more of a less doomy or spiky AOR leaning. Soon, Hayborn left to join another London act, Deep Machine, which met with similar lack of success, never generating even one full length.
The restless Hayborn soon left Deep Machine, nipping two members for the resurrected Angel Witch. They played a few dates in 1982 and planned a follow-up EP of new material which never came together. Soon Hayborn was off again, starting up another new band, Blind Fury. He left them after one demo and decided to go back to you-know-where for the umpteenth time, even managing to get their original drummer Dave Hogg back to the fold. The band signed with the tiny London imprint Killer Watt Records.
The second album, Screaming and Bleeding, was quickly recorded and released in 1985, exploring more of a gothy AOR style, along with several sets of tits on the cover. Sadly, despite the fact that newcomer Dave Tatum was quite a good fit in the vocal department, the album sold poorly, and the press puked on it, citing a lack of energy as the disc's main downfall. A follow-up was quickly written and recorded in early 1986. Let's play a clip. This is She Don't Lie. Now, as I said, a lot can change in 6 years, so I figure before getting into the songs of 1986's Frontal Assault, Let's take a look at how our new wave of British heavy metal brethren was faring in 1986. Of course, at the top of the heap, you have Maiden releasing Somewhere in Time and hitting stadiums the world over. Leopard are deep into the recording session that would yield Hysteria on an album that would absolutely outsold Band-Aids worldwide in 1987. Third place, I'd have to give the Grim Reaper, who are still cranking up quality records like 85's Fear No Evil, and eventually the fantastic final opus, Rock You to Hell. It's also worth mentioning that Satan's Into the Future EP, a band that never did anything lackluster, even without Brian Ross.
Besides those folks, we were struggling in the mid-'80s. Diamond Head had imploded after the whole Canterbury debacle. 20,000 unplayable copies, anyone? Kelly Johnson had long left girls' school, and who could blame her after some of those crappy, slick attempts at Pat Benatar records? Raven had just released The Pack Is Back, complete with the Uptown Horns and a Steve Winwood cover. The Tigers of Pantang were doing their best Helix imitation, and Saxon released Rock the Nations, an album that I rode my bike to the record store to buy, only to shelve it as a disgraceful attempt at Bon Jovi keyboard rock when I got home. Let's play a clip. This is Dream World. Frontal Assault is 9 songs that straddle the line between doomy metal and gothy hard rock. Vocalist Dave Tatum was born to sing this type of music. His layered croons sound magnificent, full of confidence and melody. Considering obvious budget constraints, the production from demon guitarist Les Hunt captures the buzzing, galloping guitar tones of Hayborn, as well as Pete Gordilaire's bass burbles, and the clanky drum sound gives the songs a bit of a kitschy charm. As far as the artwork is concerned, I don't have a problem with it at all. The Queen of Hell, or is that Medusa, being pulled in a chariot by some snake-like creature, shadowy hordes behind her ready for battle, ready for a frontal assault, plus Hayborn's obsession with tits has to be commended. I may try to get this on a t-shirt at some point.
The album starts to cook in earnest with track 2, The Galloping Dream World. Hayborn's tone is like a chainsaw. Occasional keyboard vamps adding to the gothy vibe of the track. The structure is interesting as Tatum burns through all of the lyrics in the first half of the song and then settles into a repeated chorus for the second, detailing our protagonist desperately trying to escape approaching death hordes. The chorus is fantastic, as is Hayborn's carefully structured solo. Straight from Hell cycles to a dramatic intro of soft vocals against nylon guitar and rising key riffs and drums finally erupt in a crunchy mid-tempo pulse, and the results do not disappoint. Guitars setting up another super hooky chorus. What if I don't make it? If the table starts to break it. Straight from Hell.
She Don't Lie starts slow and easy with some mellow harmonics before advancing into a doomy trudge. Gordilaire's bass leading the charge as Tatum's vocals again take gothy charge, describing a poor vixen whose experiment with the occult turns disastrous. The chorus wouldn't be out of place on a Journey album, and the solo Hayborn uncorks is one of his best. Despite the lineup changes, our final verdict is that this was a great album that was just released too late. Angel Witch were still cup stacking when the world had moved on to Livestrong bracelets. This album would have been embraced if it had been delivered back in 81 or 82. Tatum is a much better singer than Hayborn, and these songs could have worked very well in a live setting alongside classics like White Witch and Sweet Danger. In fact, I'd take it over the debuts from Cloven Hoof, Saracen, or Praying Mantis, all of which have sort of become new wave of British heavy metal romance pieces over the years. It was recently reissued on CD back in 2020, along with Screamin' and Bleedin', on the new wave of British heavy metal Treasures label, and can be had relatively cheap over at Discogs. So get over there and grab a copy of this gothy new wave of British heavy metal nugget, unjustly lost in the mists of time. We'll close it out with a little Straight from Hell. Okay, I want to introduce the interview.
This was our interview with Dan. Low Heaven has really, this album is great. I think this is going to go on one of my top albums for this year. And we can't wait to see them in a couple weeks at the Auto Bar, live and in person.
Yep. Take it away.
All right. We may get cats. We have one here currently because we did an interview last night, and same thing. I haven't fed them dinner yet, so they're generalized protesting. But
Yeah, yeah.
if they have
That's
questions,
okay.
I'll ask them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
totally fine. I've got cat-related answers, so.
That's cool. Yeah.
So loving this album. Oh my God. Um, so outside of the great toilet paper stampede of 2020, I know with you guys were a lot of pandemic kind of based. There were so many unsettling shifts, big, small. What were the most life-altering changes you personally experienced during COVID, and how did those moments become the foundation for this band?
It's funny because I feel like while America and Canada are very similar, our experiences with the pandemic were different. Like the amount of lockdown that we had comparatively, just from talking to friends in the States, was a noticeable difference. And so when we talk about, COVID and things shutting versus what, I mean, obviously what we saw on TV, but then the experience of, depending on even where you were in the States, was kind of different. Whereas like I was an essential worker during all of this, so I was working through most of it, but I would walk to work and see like two other humans. And
Mm,
then by the time I'd gotten home, depending on how that was, like I might have seen a dozen people in total. And that went on for a really long time. So the isolation issue that we all kind of dealt with, I think, was a little bit more prevalent up here. And then I know for myself, especially, was like a jarring adjustment to make. From going out and being on tour a lot and being going to shows and doing all of this stuff, I don't think I realized just how much I was existing around other people, even if it wasn't just one of those like, oh, tight interaction sort of thing. But that was
Yeah.
a jarring change. Not some days not having a reason to even get out of bed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so that definitely played a big part of it, but also, um, trying to start this band while none of us could get together. The first time we actually all met as a group face to face was in a park, very separated from one another, trying to talk about what we wanted to do. And even after that, it wasn't till weeks later that we were able to get into a room and have one rehearsal before everything shut down again. So it was really, really odd in that sense. And I think that just the unrest and the like uncomfortableness that came out of these things, but also being forced to figure out how to be creative, flooded its way into a lot of what's gone on there. I mean, like we can all talk about just how depressing and awful all of these things were, and I think that probably goes without saying. But, trying to start a band when you can't sit in the same room as somebody else and run through ideas together was a fucking weird way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
that's got to be horribly tough. I was working at a restaurant, and when they finally allowed us to come back and start doing carry out, it was a struggle. And like we were selling our draft beer in like big soup containers, for people to take. We were
Yeah.
making, martinis and putting them in smaller containers and selling them and crushes and whatever. Two old guys came in and they were like, "Can we drink these in the parking lot?" I'm like, "I don't care, sure."
Yeah. That's kind of my same experience. I've worked for the same family for a really long time, and they own a Polish restaurant here in the city. And we were allowed to still do takeout, but I feel like the first section of that, everybody was just trying to figure out whatever they could do to survive. So there was a lot of days where we would see like one person would come by. Now they would buy an insane amount of food, like they were trying to feed a small village or something.
Right.
But the rest of the time, I'd be sitting there reading or like going like doom scrolling my own brain. You know what I mean? Like just like, oh my God, everything's awful.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of like I'm empathetic to that sort of thing because everybody had a version of that experience, especially working in the service industry, of like just trying to figure out what is and isn't okay. How do we take this thing that we've done in person for 30 years and now make it a to-go experience or whatever it
Yeah.
is? Like just I try and say it's weird because any other descriptor is just extremely negative.
Yeah. I remember a lot of the restaurants just were forced to close. Um, I'm sure it was the same up there. And so you lose your business, and then these kids are not allowed to go to school, and they're trying to do online schooling. And I heard that that was really difficult to enforce because, the kids are not paying attention. And I thought, what an what a perfect framework for child abuse we've created here. I mean, like, was that the point of it all? I mean, my God, poor dad and mom both lost their jobs, and now the kids are home all the time and not doing their work. I mean, God, horrible.
Yeah, I don't think, like, again, me trying to, like, I think make sense of it all, but I don't think we're really going to see the, for lack of a better term, ramifications of this whole thing for much longer than we think it's going to be.
Yeah,
And I consider myself lucky with the people that are around me who have kids. I've seen a positive jump back. Like, it definitely was hard, but you're seeing, I think kids are resilient, so you're seeing that resiliency come back. But I can't imagine trying to be in high school, for example, and going through that because there's so many different, just awkward things going on. But you're kind of learning your place in the world, and then you just spent 2 years kind of not being in the world. So
yeah,
I am kind of curious, just from an anthropological standpoint, of like, what's that going to do? But also, I think it showed coming out of these things, again, how resilient everybody can be and finding their way to like create a new norm in a positive manner. Like, there's a bunch of dog shit things going on, but traditionally speaking, I think we all do try and make things better. So I don't know. It's interesting, but I mean, at least in the area that I'm in around here, I live in the east end of the city. There's a real focus since COVID of like my neighborhood has very little chains of anything. Like, there's the coffee shops people go to are owned by families or individuals, and the restaurants are all like, if they're a chain, it's a Toronto chain. It's not like Burger King. You know what I mean? Like,
right, right,
so, and I
right,
think that that's been a really nice thing to see kind of spring up is people have really invested in that ideal and kind of kept up with it. So again, looking for positives.
right, exactly. Yeah.
So all that, grief, identity collapse, isolation. Do you hear those emotions on specific tracks on Ritual Decay, or are they just kind of like in the record's DNA in a more abstract way?
I think it's both. I know when I was writing a lot of the lyrics for this, because the writing of the music was a very complicated but very fulfilling venture of like sending songs back and forth and hearing, sending a song to Mikey and then hearing him tear it apart and put it back together and like hearing his version of it. Like, that wasn't like a virtual way of how I think we would have done stuff in person. But writing the lyrics for this was an entirely like me thing. And when I listen back to it, I can hear my fear. I can hear my struggle with just every part of my life kind of melting down. So for me, it's in every inch of everything that's gone on, whether it's Ritual Decay or even Collapse, our EP before this, like, it's all in there. Um, I think that the music holds its own version of that, and that's more of a channel of the three of us that were working together on all of these things. And I think you hear everybody's version of the anxiety or the depression or just the morose that was coming out of all of that stuff. And that combination is the sound that you hear. I think that that probably goes without saying for almost any kind of, um, pandemic related project that's come out, whether it's art, whether it's books, whether it's music. There is that overarching theme regardless. And I think ours is just probably a little bit more prevalent because there was no other thing to swing into. There wasn't something positive to make out of it at the time that we were doing these things. It was just, okay, now this is done and everything still sucks. Let's go and do this and everything still sucks. So yeah, I would agree that it's in the DNA of everything, but I also don't think it's hiding. Like, I think if you were to look through the lyrics or you're listening to it, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing that you ate during the pandemic that you still stand behind?
Hmm. I think it was more the understanding of the level of coffee I should be allowed to have every day. If I'm being really honest, I'm a creature of habit with food. A lot of times I eat a lot of the same things, especially if we're not able to go out anywhere. I'm eating a lot of the same stuff. But the volume of coffee that I should be allowed to have, regardless of whether I'm in public or not, is becoming painfully obvious. Uh, because there was a lot of time spent in my old apartment, like walking up and down the stairs and not understanding why I had all this energy to burn off, even though I had 7 cups of coffee while I was working on whatever I
Right.
was doing,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I will say that like I was a really, really late bloomer to sushi, which is a really dumb thing to bring up. But that was probably one that I has become a top 3 favorite food, but that was kind of later into the pandemic of like I can't fucking eat falafel again. I need to do something else. But I don't think that's weird. It's just Dan
Yeah.
should not have more than 1 coffee a day, no matter what. Even though I love coffee and I would happily be drowned in it, like it's fine. I
Right.
can't do that.
I remember eating an alarming amount of Takis. Like I would do it I would put it in a mug and just be drinking the Takis because I didn't want to get that shit on my fingers, you know?
No,
And then
no.
by the time I was like through the second bag in the same day, I'm like, all right, I think you need to hold off on the Takis a little bit, you know?
That's a you know what, that's a good one. We don't really have those down here, or excuse
Mm,
me, up here. And I always joke that some of these kind of like US foods are kind of like a
hmm.
delicacy. That would be one of those.
Yeah.
Like you got to enjoy it while you can, but you can't have too many. It's like tacos are amazing, but you can't have too many tacos either. So
I'll tell you what, you're right though. Our convenience stores, just our gas stations like Wawa and Rural Farms, you go in there, you'll see a pallet of them, and they
oh
wouldn't buy
yeah.
a pallet of Takis if they didn't know they could sell them. So, I mean, Americans, we're never more than like 10 minutes away from a snack, really. You know, we're just not.
Which, let's be honest, that's the right way to live. Like, let's really be truthful about that.
Yeah.
That's
Like
how
go
it
to
should be.
Europe or go to Mexico. You don't have the snack options that we have. I mean, come on, you know, it's just you mean you close at 5, like for real? You know, it's
Yeah.
that's like every time I go to Europe, I can't believe it, you know. Mm.
So, in some religions and philosophical traditions, low heaven is seen as the realm closest to the human experience. So, it's still divine, but it's flawed. Um, it's kind of raw, grounded suffering. Is that the idea reflected behind your name, or what does it really mean to you as a creative identity?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. We had thrown around a bunch of different names for the band, and we were never really quite happy because while we were doing it, we were still writing a lot of this material and coming up with a lot of it. And we came up with a name. We're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then we get 4 more songs into it, and we'd be like, this just doesn't fit. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't encompass what we're doing. And Low Heaven, we actually got the reference from somewhere else, but the more and more we looked into it and the more we kind of dove into like the philosophical side of things, the religious side of things, the fact that different religions take this term in a different way, like it kind of gave us this interesting zone of like we know what it means for us, but also there's so many different other ways to take it that you don't necessarily know exactly what you're getting, but you have a pretty decent idea. And the more and more I think we sat with that, and the more and more the songs started getting finished, and we knew what was kind of going on, the more that it was like, oh, this is the right way to go. Because it's not a direct thing of being like, this is a fucking nightmare, but it's a hint at what's going on there. And like you said, there's depending on where we're looking at it, there are different versions of how this is laid out, but they are all not necessarily a good thing. So that was kind of it became more important the more that we focused on a name. But I think Low Heaven definitely encompassed the whole realm of what we were trying to do and I think we've achieved.
You
Yeah.
could have your sister band High Hell.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a cool name. It reminded me of like when Slayer South of Heaven came out. I was like, oh, okay, that could be Earth or Hell. You know, it's kind of vague, just vague enough, you know.
Yeah.
Um, how about let's talk about the fact that it's all in lowercase. Does that represent like humility or bleakness or subtlety? And did you go through other like designs for your logo before you settled on that one?
Like an indecipherable one.
Yeah.
I think we knew pretty quickly that we weren't going to be able to pull off the death metal thing,
Okay.
which is cool. For us, it was kind of twofold, is that there's a lot of bands kind of in our world that have a very specific, like it's this and it's very prominent and it's very whatever. And while I believe that that can be very helpful to the overall identity of the band, we didn't want to be punching someone in the face. We wanted the music to kind of stand for what it was. And so having it be a little more laid back, like it's not all capitals, it's not all this, it's all lowercase, you know, it's um a little less in your face, but also a little more subtle to the hint of that, like, this isn't like everything else.
Yeah.
Also growing up the way that we did, the kind of the ages that we're at, there is a little bit of that 90s screamo throwback too, where everything was done in a very specific manner. And we wanted to adopt our version of that when it came to the visuals of the band. We had a pretty clear identity of the things that we did and didn't want to hit on. But finding the way to achieve that, I think, really started with the fact that we're like, low heaven is lowercase no matter what. You know, we can get some creativity with some of the other layouts. We can be a little more flexible. As you notice, like Ritual Decay on the layout is done in capitals. That again was like a stylistic push of making sure like this is different than the last thing. But that low heaven logo, like if that's the thing that you're going to see, kind of the same as the band name, you don't exactly know what you're getting out of it. You don't exactly know just from looking at it, oh, this is what this band sounds like. But it does also lean towards the things that we believe are important when it comes to the image and the style of the band.
Yeah, it doesn't pigeonhole you at all, the name.
Um, I really like the phrase ritual decay. It almost seems like an oxymoron when you first read it. But on one level, it kind of conjures this image of society, like shared, like ceremonies, funerals, weddings, community rites, kind of starting to crumble. Was that breakdown part of what inspired the album title, or is it more personal, like a decay of internal rituals?
I think speaking directly for me, part of the appeal to it was that it really did represent the teardown of what my life had been like beforehand. You know, a lot of things that I counted on, and again, in the grand scheme of things, and looking back, were a big part of my identity, were completely gone. So it was tearing or decaying down the idea of what my life was and what my habits were and where all of these things were going. But I also think that we all sat and watched as a lot of bad happened, a lot of decay of society, for lack of a better term. Um, and I think that that also fits into just the overall feelings that we've been talking about here, the feelings of the record and the bleakness of the record and the anxiety that is induced from that. This was one of the better ways that we encompassed a visual idea with a like with a phrase or a word or like a set of words there that really encompassed what we were all feeling. Like again, I use this example because not everybody use it, but we had this weird fucking trucker protest thing happen in our country that if you search it, it's a little bit wild. But like whatever you believe, you believe. But the thing that was really bothering me about this is that these truckers were parked out front of like a community center that dealt with unhoused people and was helping feed them and deal like you know, dealing with safe injection sites and all these stuff. And these people that were at the protest were going into this facility and being like, fucking feed us. And it's like, you're not there for that. Like, and that to me was a big idea that stuck out. And it's funny to think about, but at the time it was like, what the fuck are these people doing? Because you're not in need. You're just being an asshole. But they're going in and taking advantage of these things. And these people that are involved in these centers can't do anything about it. Like, they're not going to like stand at the door with a baseball bat. Like, what are they supposed to do? But that was just literally watching the idea of what people should be like, especially in the time of what's going on there. And it's just fucking decay. Like it's just the fall apart of these people. And you know that they never even thought twice about it. And that just destroys like how can you think people are good when that sort of thing is happening?
No, I know what you mean. I watched this documentary and I don't remember what it was called, but it basically part of it they talked about when the Capitol building got stormed in the U.S. and
Hmm.
the guy he said every single crazy person that was there that he talked to had a different reason for being there. Like one was like, you know, it's because they bankrupted my car dealership. And then the next one was, it's because of this crazy reason or that crazy reason. It was like he never got the same reason from any of them why they were there. It
That's
was just like,
terrifying.
just psychos are us, is what it was, So
Yeah. And I mean, again, that could just be a response to everything, which is be a little understandable, but also what a scary thing. Like
yeah,
that's terrifying to have that little, like, I don't want to say it in this way, but like to be that stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, give me a fucking
it
break.
yeah. The takeaway from it was that it was just attention crazy people.
Yeah.
Basically that's what it was. If you want to be here, show up.
Yeah.
Regardless of your reason.
Oh, my orange juice had too much pulp in it. Like what?
Right,
What?
exactly. Exactly. It's because the government doesn't hire enough Indian people, whatever. Like
Oh
everybody
my
had their
God.
own reason, So,
Wild.
mhm.
Yeah, they didn't have a meeting beforehand.
No, they were not united. They were united, but not united.
They
Yeah.
pulled up to
No.
the back of like the local loony bin and we're like, everybody, come on.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's any ritual left, musical, emotional, or even spiritual, that's still
Or
worth
social.
clinging to it, or
Social,
social
yeah,
after
yeah.
all that? Or is decay the only thing we have left to hold on to now?
I think new stuff is kind of being built. I mean, I look at it as simply as like any kind of personal ritual. I again talking of coffee because I love it. Like I have a personal like patterned ritual with coffee in the morning, depending on what's going on. And I know that I take a lot of comfort out of that happening. Do I have something that I partake in on a regular basis with the mass society of people? Absolutely not. So I think when we're talking about these things, it gets much farther down to a more personal level of where these things become positive. To me, rituals in general are not necessarily a good thing. Like if we're talking religious based, like I grew up in a very Catholic household. I went to a Catholic school and had to go to church and all of these things. And that stuff fucks you up when you start applying logic to what's going on. And I look at a lot of those things, like the different holidays that are happening, or even just the ritual of like going to church on Sunday. And I think that's really damaging. Like that's not good for people. You're not creating an acceptable or more likely humane environment for people to be existing in. So I think that at least for our group, especially for me, the concept of a ritual outside of the individual is definitely a negative thing. And I have a hard time trying to think of anything that's a positive that would be used in that term. Um, that is outside of, like I said, like making a coffee or like you and your partner having this Sunday thing that you do together, like that sort of thing. But once you take the individual out of it, it becomes a problem to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are also recovering Catholics.
Yeah.
We're still recovering.
Yeah.
We're
You
in
know exactly
recovery.
what I'm talking about then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I still didn't learn. Like my ex-husband insisted that our kids go to Catholic school, and we got a new pastor, and it was such like a money grab. He said, if he didn't see your envelope in the basket every week, you were going to have to start paying out of parish tuition rates because he wanted you at church. So I said, really, this is all about what's in our envelope then? He said, no, you can leave a blank envelope. I just want to know you're there. So that's what he got from me from then on. Blank envelope in the basket.
oh wow.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. It's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in the States. I would imagine it is, but up here in Canada, they don't pay tax.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whatever
Same.
income,
Yeah.
okay, that floors me in a way that I can't even explain. Like what like like I'm even struggling to say whatever it is I would say about this. It just blows my. I have so much problem with just organized religion in general. But just like the crock of shit that people are accepting, like, I just, yeah, it's too much. All right,
Right.
we could go. This podcast
Yeah.
could become a anti-religious podcast, and I would spend 2 hours talking to you about
I
that,
know.
and then have more
I
for the
know.
next episode. So
I know. I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
We could all go on and on about how we personally victified for
Yeah.
yeah,
quite some time.
Yeah.
yeah.
So Toronto is kind of known for its genre fusion. Do you think it's something about the city's cultural diversity that leads to kind of Low Heaven's sonic weirdness and goodness?
Definitely. Everybody that has come to this city, I don't know a lot of people that were born and raised here. Maybe born and raised in kind of the outer area, the area we call the GTA. I actually grew up about 2 hours east of the city. So when I was growing up, we used to drive into the city for shows, but also we were just far enough away that it's not like we were going every weekend kind of thing. So I think the fact that you get a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds really brings an interesting and intense musical culture here, and that's across every board, like whether it's heavy bands, whether it's indie bands, whether it's hip hop. Like this city is extremely vibrant when it comes to music across the board, and you do have a fair amount of people that play in a few different things,
Yeah.
which I find really fascinating. Now, when I first moved out of my hometown, I actually moved to Ottawa, which is the nation's capital, but is about maybe a third the size of Toronto. And I moved up there thinking I would join a band and go on tour, which is exactly what I did. But the city was not remotely art centric. So when I finally made it to Toronto, I was like, oh, this is where I should have been the whole time. And I kind of liken it to like it's got its vibes of New York, but it's also got its vibes of like the Pacific Northwest where everybody's like just creating and doing
Yeah.
shit, you know. And
Mhm.
Toronto is like a perfect split between those things. There's a lot of just incredible music, incredible art, incredible culture going on because we have so many people from so many different places. But that also means that if you've got like a heavy band, the definition of that is going to be different from band to band to band to band because not all of these people have come from the same spot. And that's awesome. But I also think that that happens in a lot of bigger cities too. Like you could say the same thing about New York. New York is vibrant for everything, and it's because not a lot of people are born and raised there. They're coming from somewhere else and bringing their experience and their talents into whatever it is. I just think that Toronto is more forward about that. You know, like we're okay having a punk rock band that's got a rapper as a singer, and that band will become pretty popular within Toronto. You know, it's not going to be a punching up thing where they have to kind of build their way through. People are going to be like, "Oh, that sounds awesome," and show up.
Yeah.
And I think that part is really special to Toronto is that a lot of bands get a lot of support from people, even if it's not their world. They're still going to be like, "This is crazy, let's go," and that's a pretty special to Toronto thing.
That's awesome.
It's very
So,
cool.
yeah, you know what? I guess in the US, we always think that, Native American issues are an American thing. It didn't really come to my attention until recently when we were talking to Ethereal Tomb. And, when we saw that, was it 1983 that, and all those that they had those Indian schools too. And it
Oh,
was,
the residential schools? Oh
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um
I was shocked that was like, wow, I thought that was just here.
one of my I think it was my second job after I moved to Ottawa was actually working on what they call the residential school settlement I think a system or something. But in essence, I was answering the phone from people from all kinds of backgrounds who went through the residential school system and literally writing down what they could remember. And I lasted in that job for 3 weeks. I couldn't do it after
Oh
that. It
my
was
Yeah,
God.
I
so
bet it was horrible.
pain. It was awful. And that was my exposure was like 3 weeks to this. I can't imagine growing up with that. You know, I can't imagine the ideals of sort some of those things. But also up here, we're still getting information that's leaking out about it. We're still finding like for as horrible as it is to sound, like burial plots from schools where
God.
they buried a bunch of kids and like all this crazy shit. And like obviously the US gets more attention for bad things because it's so much bigger, but like we're not any better. You know, we've got different versions of what's going on, but it's not like we've all been up here been like everything's okay, eh? Like it's just that's not what it is. And it's tough knowing, you know, like friends in bands that have grown up that are native Canadians or from these areas and you know, like Canada, I will say in my opinion comparatively to some other countries, they're trying but the trying level isn't even close enough to make up for what's going on. And I think that there's a lot of room for improvement there. There's a lot of room for you know, trying to take a greater step forward in improving improving a lot of these things, but also just the awareness of some of the dog shit that's gone down is still just trickling out. And like we're like I said, we're no better than anywhere else because of that, you know. It's just we're really good at being like, we've got ketchup chips, you know, like it's just look
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
over
I know what
here,
you
sort
mean.
of thing. So
Yeah, we were watching a documentary about it not that long ago, and it was one of the old churches, and it was in the US, and they had gone up. It was, that the building was all but collapsed, but they were able to kind of get up onto where the second floor was and still find where they had scratched their suicide notes into the wood, and it was heavy stuff, really heavy, and just
It's it's
awful.
really terrible. And I think, um, again, I think I may be a little bit more in touch with it from working on that settlement and the money that was or was not paid for this stuff, which is just
Yeah,
crazy. But like
yeah,
it still impacts me now when I think about it. And I get really upset when I see news about these things and people just kind of brushing it off because it's a massive part of what's gone on. It wasn't, 3 or 4 years of this happening.
right.
It was a very long time. And we've pushed it under the carpet for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, given, of course, your feelings about religion, how in the world did you end up recording your debut album inside of an old church that has to be immersed in rituals, ghosts, and also having a nonstop horror movie marathon? That's not usually a typical studio experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it like an
So
intentional descent into madness, or did it just become one? It seemed to me it was kind of like The Shining.
a little bit. The Shining with really good vegan food.
Yeah.
The gentleman that we recorded with is a gentleman named Brett. My band, previous to Low Heaven, had recorded our last record with him. Had a really great experience, but obviously that was pre-COVID. So when we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, we were obviously you throw names around back and forth, you go through all of this stuff. And at some point it had occurred to me that like I should probably talk to Brett. He has the widest berth of like musical influences of any musician that I know. So he gets it. Like we can send him something and be like, we want this to sound like Neurosis mixed with whatever, and he doesn't have to go, oh, let me go look that band up. Like he knows. And so we had a group have been talking about a bunch of different people, and I was like, I think we should talk to Brett. Let's send him some of the demos. Let's see what he thinks. And I sent him a text. I said, hey, we've got this thing going on. I'm going to send you some demos. Let me know what you think. And the studio was just a byproduct of that. Like that's the studio that he works out of. Um, it, from the outside you could look at it and be like, okay, yeah, you probably were a church at one point. Inside you can't tell except for the drum room. The drum room still has the stained glass
Oh,
windows,
wow.
and that is I regardless of religious connotation, I think stained glass is really cool. So for me, like when the sun's coming in the morning and it's all lit up in a weird way, I was just like, it's kind of nice. But when Brett heard the demos and heard what we were going on, and he's like, "Oh, like I'm down to do this. I've got a good idea." I think for him, the wheels started turning of like, okay, I hear what they're doing. We've got to create an entire thing around this because it wasn't 2 days of being there. Like we showed up, we loaded in, we set up the first day, set up the drum kit, started doing some tests and sort of like that. And bang, right away, it's like, all right, well, I guess we're watching David Cronenberg. And that
Yeah.
just started the ball rolling. And I don't think Brett would ever admit to like doing it on purpose, but I think that that was in the back of his head of like, I've got to match the vibe to the music that's going on. And I know for me, especially having worked with him before, but also like having worked in studios and done all this stuff, I know it helped me get out of my head about being worried about what does this sound like and get more into like, I need to make sure that this is like, this sounds the way we feel. The lyrics sound and feel the way that they're supposed to that matches the music. And because it would be weird, you'd be sitting there doing a guitar track and you would look up and someone would just be getting cut to pieces. And you're not like looking up and being like, oh, it's Family Guy. That's funny. Like you're like,
Yeah.
all right, this is serious. And then you just get back
Right.
to work. And that's not to say we didn't have fun, but it was like when it was time to create, that's what was there. Like you just it was always kind of hanging over you. If some like what I found is if I was trying to track vocals and I was struggling, normally I would take like a few minutes and like work it out on my own and like get whatever. What I found was happening is because we were so like overdone with this kind of like for lack of a better term negative energy, I was getting mad. So then I would start tracking more aggressively and I would end up with something else that I hadn't started trying to do but was just created from the mood of what was going on. And that's kind of like catching lightning in a bottle in a little bit. You have to tease it out of yourself. You have to poke yourself with a knife a bunch of times before you start bleeding. But once the bleeding starts, it's like that's what you're after. And I think that like we were there almost a month. I think a couple of days less a month or something like that. And it was almost every day like that. On days that we took off, we went to see Jackass in the theater. Like we were taking like as easy of a time as we could. But then the next morning it'd be like, all right, it's 10 o'clock and coffee's ready. It's time to destroy our minds again. So
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And
But
but
that's the way
like
I always picture what a real producer should do. Like it's not
absolutely.
just, you know, let's try it again, click. It's not just that. It's create a mood,
Yeah.
get everybody in the right headspace. That's what they're supposed it's kind of coaching as well as recording.
Yeah, honestly, saying coaching is a good comparison, at least from my experience. You got to have the right people too. I don't think like Brett is the right personality. He's the right guy for us. I don't think if the same thing had happened with a different, say, engineer or producer, that we would have gotten the same results
Right,
because
right.
we implicitly trusted Brett's judgment, but also if there was something to argue about, we would argue it. Like it wouldn't just be like the guy rolling over or being like, no, this is how we're doing it. Like there was always that kind of back and forth with that. And I think that that gives you a trust in somebody that you buy into everything else as well. And
Hmm.
like I said, just speaking for me, I had worked with Brett before, so I was kind of expecting a little parts of these things. Alex and Mikey had never worked with Brett before, like had never been to the studio before we set foot in there to start recording. So for them, their experience of this is probably different, but still ends up in the same zone of what we're talking about, of like this intensity, this like kind of mental fortitude to stay drilled into the negative.
Hmm.
I guess not looking like a church. I suppose it didn't have a haunted feel since it did look like a studio. You're never really like, oh, it's a cold spot. Oh, it's haunted.
I slept in a different part of the studio than everybody else. Like it's a pretty big, like there's technically three studios in this place. And I was sleeping in the like lounge while while Mikey and Alex were actually sleeping upstairs in an area that makes sense for them to sleep in. And it was partially because I'm a terrible sleeper. I have like chronic insomnia. I don't sleep very well all the time, but also I knew I was going to need extra time to sit down and like re-edit the lyrics or go through the books of lyrics that I brought and like pull lines from things and reorganize and do all of that stuff. And I would say that that lobby and that like kind of lounge area is haunted as fuck because like something would turn on and scare the shit out of me at like 4 in the morning, or
Yeah.
like the shower, I'd go and turn the shower on, it would be cold forever, and then I'd put my hand under it, it'd be scalding hot. Like there was no warning or anything, but I 100% know that was only my experience, like of just
Yeah.
being in these, areas that I probably shouldn't be in, and like living in these kind of zones a little bit more. But like the whole area, it's just like I said, you kind of wouldn't know that it was a church if you weren't in it. They've spent a lot of time maintaining the benefits of the church, like the big rooms and like having the areas to track, but it does look more like a studio than anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I know in England that they've been doing that since the 60s and 70s, like converting churches into studios. Like I remember reading about how um like bands like Zeppelin and Tull were in converted churches recording, and same thing, haunted stories and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a given. If anything, it's like a psychological thing, right? Of like, what bad has happened in this building that
Yeah.
we're never going to know about? Because
Right.
like whatever you think about it, like some nasty shit's happened in churches, no matter what's going on. So
We keep coming back to that.
Maybe they
I
were
know.
disapproving of your unholy snacks that you were consuming.
Yeah. How dare you bring Cronenberg movies into this sacred place, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So we had a few track specific questions. I love Grievance. It kicks the door in with that massive like fuzz intro. How did you build that sound? Is it do you write songs like front to back or do you add intros and outros in later?
It's always different. For me, if I'm writing something, I've usually got a riff and a melody, and it's in my head, and then I record it and I fiddle around with it. In Grievance, actually, I remember sending a version of the song to Mikey, and I think it was Alex and I had worked on it. and he sent a version back that was much closer to the song is now. And there was a part that was in there that was not in the song beforehand that he had like thrown in. And I was really torn on that song. And when he sent his version back, I was like, oh, this is staying. Like it was that drastic of a difference. But the pieces, it's not like he changed every part. It's just he moved some stuff around and then inserted this part in there. And all of a sudden it like made sense as the song. And once we finished recording the demo, like the final demo of it with everybody playing on it and everything, we also were like, oh no, that's the first track of the record too. Like um we knew this going in before we even got to the studio, like this is track one. And from like a soft gear conversation with that, um the setup to our guitar sound shockingly is actually quite simple in that recording. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that it was mixed. It's very dynamic. You get a lot of big jumps and things. But also we're an extremely pedal happy and extremely experimental happy band where we will fuck with shit until it sounds right. And that one, we didn't record that song first in the studio. It was a little bit later on because it needed a little bit of like time to get into it, so to speak. Like we wanted to make sure we knew what the bass sounded like and we knew what the guitars were going to come in because that one comes in at a different level and we that was adorable. And we just knew that that had to hit. And then, you know, taking elements from different spots of the recording and creating it into this thing, as you said, I think you're getting the impact that we were after. So that one is like it's born to be the first song. You know, I'm kind of curious to see where it ends up in the set, like if it's something that we open a set with, because it's got some potential in a few different spots, but there's not a chance in hell that that song wasn't the first song on the record.
Yeah.
It's an excellent choice. Although, you know, with Grievance, I had a feeling it was going to hit me over the head right away. So when I saw fucking hell, I thought, oh no. I kind of braced and then it kind of a completely like different beginning. I was like, oh.
So that one is named that way because of the bridge. If we're going to really expose things right now, that song is a counting nightmare. If you're trying to count along with what it's in there, it's fucking all over the place. And I remember when we were putting the demo together that none of us are super great with computers. So we had to kind of figure out how to set the click track like section by section by section. And it was a fucking ordeal. And so that was the demo name of this song. And when we got to tracking the actual recording and we started adding all the pieces to it, we were like, no, this just fits. Like, it's just the right title for this. But that will always make me laugh because I just remember like trying to record it and being like, oh, fuck, I got to count this part in five. Like, what are we doing? And it was just like, it was almost like we did it intentionally to ourselves to like make it a struggle. But yeah, I'm happy that it's there, and I think that that title's really funny, and it's probably the only like funny thing that the band has done because no one else is going to get that joke. Like it's just for us. Otherwise, it
Right,
just
yeah.
makes sense for the song. Like, yeah, of course it's called that, you know?
Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah.
Chemical Pattern, I thought it really showed your punk roots there, kind of showing through around the edges. But especially in the drums and the vocal delivery, you know, it's peppered with that manic kind of controlled chaos that erupts in between verses. So you were saying, are your guitars actually down tuned or is it all the pedals you were talking about?
Oh, so we play in B. So like we're pretty tuned down, drop B. But also like I think there's a distinct fatness that comes with the lower you get before you start losing like the register. Like when you get into like, oh, I'm tuned to F sharp or whatever, like that you're just not hearing it in the same way. But the thing that we were really cognizant of when we were trying to make the record is like we wanted different guitar tones for different levels. So like there's and it's bass as well. I shouldn't leave out Mikey or the bass in there. So there's like the tone, and then there's the louder tone, and then there's the loud tone, and then there's like a fuzzed out one that we use in certain parts of this, and that stays consistent throughout the record. So if you have something that would be like at this level, and that's kind of standard level, and we take a bump up, every time that bump happens across the entire record, it's the same bump. Now, how that's executed with other stuff on top of it can be very different, but we wanted to set that level and have that consistency be there. Considering Chemical Pattern was the first single off of the record, that song really does show a couple of those guitar dynamic ranges, but then it also does show the effort that we went into with the mix and the master to maintain it being dynamic, because there are like legitimately different volume levels for things as it hits. It's not like a massive difference, it's like a tiny little bit, but you hear it, you feel it, you know. And we really wanted to be cognizant of that, and I think Chemical Pattern is a good example of like, it's pretty, like you can tell with the way the song is going that it does those things, whereas some of the other songs on the record, it fucking starts at 10 and then drops to 5 and then goes to 7, and then it's a little less
Yeah.
arranged, you know. So
We were watching the video last night. It's very visually stunning with those frantic cuts and total sensory overload. How many cameras or takes or gallons of caffeine did it take to pull off all those rapid fire shots? And the synchronized headbanging, was that organic or planned?
it's one camera.
Wow.
The entire thing was shot with one person. His name is Dylan Gould. He is incredible. He does a lot of like heavy music stuff. We're actually probably on the lighter side of a lot of the stuff that he does. But he visually just kind of gets it. And he's been a long time collaborator for all of us, like in this band or in other bands. We just like working with him. He apparently likes working with us. We shot this over probably about 8 hours in a little art space here in Toronto where they allow you to kind of like rent out different rooms for different functions. You know, it's a nice little spot where they're trying to like promote a lot of different art things. So it's nice to give your money to that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But a lot of it was, you know, like, okay, we're gonna do a full band shot and we're gonna run the song 6 times, and he's kind of like moving around the room or whatever it is. Um, the headbanging thing just kind of happens in the song. There's spots where you're gonna fucking do it. We're all a little bit older, so there's not gonna be any like jumping off the drum kit anymore things. So that's kind of like the trade-off, is we kind of get that going a little bit more. But also I think that like one of the genre jokes that we make is like, we're a headbanging band, we're not like a pit band, you know. So like, you're not going to
Okay.
see a circle pit while we're playing, you're going to see a bunch of people doing this sort of thing. So it kind of makes sense that part of the live show would be a similar thing, but no one is like setting out to do any kind of performative, like this is what happens at this moment. It's just like you kind of let yourself get taken over by the music, and whatever comes out comes out. And we really focused on trying to do that with this video because, you know, performance videos can be a little bit tough. They can be a little bit monotonous. We wanted to do something a little bit different. And also, like, chopping things up really quickly means that you get a different visual experience from like a long wide shot the whole time or whatever it's going to be. So,
It was really good with where the tempo picked up, like the frantic of the different shots picked up. So that was great. But did anybody look at the finished product and go, this should probably have a seizure warning on it?
you know what? Somebody mentioned it to us after we released it, and I was like, honestly, yeah, we should have thought of that about that beforehand. My brain always goes to strobe lights and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
my head, I was like, well, we didn't do anything like that. But the more, because very truthfully, I don't like watch or listen to a lot of our stuff once it's done. I'll watch it a couple times and be like, yeah, that's good. And then that's it for me. I'm moving on to the next thing.
Right.
And so I think had I spent a little bit more time paying attention, I probably would have said like, "Hey, we should probably put something here." But also my brain didn't go there because there's the lighting is stagnant. Like it doesn't change at all. The
Yeah.
actual lighting of everything. It's all the edits and the kind of like the in and out of focus and in and out of tracking for those of us that still remember VHS tapes.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, that kind of thing is a little bit more in there. And I think the way that we achieve that is a little bit more jarring. So it makes sense.
I thought there might have been like a band argument. Would Cronenberg have listed a seizure warning? No, I don't think so, you know.
No, our arguments have a lot more to do with like tiny little details than any big thing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Like we should slow this shot down, we should speed this thing up, and um, it you know, it is what happens when you've got 4 to 5 individuals who are very detail oriented, that you're going to sometimes end up that way. But also that also means that sometimes we have to have that conversation of like, be okay with things not being perfect, you know, be
Yeah.
okay with someone else making their version of art over our version of art and find where that meets together versus like controlling every aspect of it, which I think is what's cool about making videos or any of that other stuff is you have a person that's outside of your world giving you their vision of how they see this, and then you find that like middle ground to get there, and I fucking love that. So it also lands in some of that zone too of like we don't have to be worried that your shoe is untied in that cook, or whatever it is, like, which to be fair, there is no untied shoes in that video. Don't go looking for it.
No.
So I love Cancer Sleep too. What an ominous title. And now I'm wondering if that has something to do with your bad sleeping and insomnia. Um, so much is the doomier pace kind of folds in with that sleep paralysis feeling. So is that a conscious shift to kind of make that a little plottier?
Yes and no. I mean, the one thing that I think we all are cognizant of is like we play the songs slower than they are on the record, which is not very common. Usually goes the other way. So there's a lot of times where like you'll hear the riff, and then if you're coming to see us, you're actually going to hear it slowed down. And Cancer Sleep is definitely one of those. Like the pace of that song on the record, it's good, but the pace of that we play it live is a little bit more punishing. Um, but Cancer Sleep was actually the first song we ever released. It's also on the EP Collapse. Obviously different versions of the same thing, but um, we wanted to do something that had some heaviness, but also had like a bit of a hook to it as the first thing. But we discovered very quickly that that was like one of the stronger response like live songs that we would get. Playing that live, we get a lot more of a reaction than like a couple of the other songs off of the EP. And I think it partially does sit from the fact that like there is like a doom or like a sludge aspect to that song and other parts of Ritual Decay that weren't maybe demonstrated in some of the earlier stuff that we did. Um, so yeah, I think that's got its purpose. The title actually came from a oh shit, what's his name now? Now I'm blanking on it. Charles Bukowski poem that is in reference to not sleeping for days. So in a roundabout way, it is in reference to the fact that I deal with chronic insomnia off and on through my entire life. It does color a lot of shit, but also I like the fact that I know that it references something else very specific and very direct to me, and I can create the imagery that goes with that for this so that somebody else's connection to that name is completely different. The song itself is based a little bit in that and a little bit more in just like life melting, which is kind of like the overarching theme of the records. But that one, like the title and the song and the lyrics and the everything really work well together in a bit more of a planned way than the rest of the record does.
I love the vocals there. They're completely unhinged there. Do you know where he goes to summon like that kind of growl? I mean, do you have to tap into grief, Lovecraftian stuff, or do you just skip breakfast? Maybe coffee for you.
I'm assuming we're talking about Mikey's Big Boy stuff there.
Yeah.
When we started playing together, I'm an absolutely massive Cave In fan. I love Cave In passionately. And I would kind of joke that, like, oh, if I'm starting another band, I need my Caleb. Like, I need somebody that can do that. And Mikey is a very underrated vocalist as far as like what he's capable of doing. But when he did that the first couple of times, we're like, oh, that's the thing. Like that's your special spot. He does harmonies live. He does a lot of other stuff. I'm not trying to say that he's only capable of one, but that's a sound that I can't make, that a lot of other people can't make, in a way where there is volume, there is fucking beef, but you can understand what he's saying. He's enunciating. And there's a lot of very cool, aggressive ways of doing vocals that cover a broad spectrum of stuff. But when I hear him do that, that's like in my head, like the best thing possible. Like he just crushes all of it. And my voice, like I said, I'm not capable of doing that. So I've got my version of that. And because now we have this kind of double-headed weapon, it gives us the opportunity to really um, emphasize parts as being what they are. So when in Cancer Sleep, when that vocal part comes in, like punching you in the nose, and then the music follows right after to kind of crush in on it. And like, I wouldn't have been able to achieve that. If it was me doing that instead, it wouldn't have the same impact. And I like would take that comparison and put it for anybody in this band. You know, I could have played Alex's lead parts, but they wouldn't sound the way that they do. So imagining my voice doing that versus Mikey's voice, which is absolutely perfect for it, it's just not the same part at that point.
Definitely. Yeah, it just hits the spot to a T.
He is a big boy with that. I don't know.
So I like in like complete total contrast, Amherst opens up with this fragile, almost tender segment and then slowly builds to rupture. It's a really good masterclass in restraint. And the lines cancerous routines and damaged dreams really gun punches you in the middle of this softness. Is Amherst a real place or a memory or a moment in time or
It is a place that doesn't exist anymore technically, but is still like what it was is still there. Without giving away too much, because I think it's kind of fun to maybe not share all the secrets with it. It has to do with a very specific and very direct part of my old life, I would say, where that song is kind of the closure to it in a way that I didn't want to admit to. So a lot of the kind of like not metaphorical descriptions because it is pretty spot on, but the way that the song was handled was a lot of like, okay, let's put it to rest in the most direct way, which is relatively violent, but done in a very delicate and almost morose manner. And that was Amherst was the first song that was ever written by this band and the last song to be done. There's probably 9 different versions of this song. I actually never recorded vocals for it before we even got to the studio. I like the demo is completely instrumental. And when I sent the demos to Brett, I was like, I'm not done with this song. So it took a lot to get there. It was a lot of kind of like opening the door on myself in that sense, which is a fair way to describe the majority of the record. But this one specifically is kind of channeling a different segment of that. And, you know, like I said, like even I was still writing verses in the vocal booth, like changing lines or like going, hey, we need to go back and re-record this part. And again, being the guys that we are, we're very collaborative. We're throwing ideas out. We're doing that. The fucking control room was silent. Like every time I'd go to record a vocal, I would come back and be like, I need to do that again. And Brett would just click in and be like, okay, nothing else. And that was again what that moment needed, what emotions needed to come out in order to get that done. And I'm happy that that song is what it is. It's kind of like the outlier on the record in a roundabout way. It still absolutely fits in just with the weight of the content that's there and like what the song is about and how it fits in with the rest of this record. But also it's the song that kind of like scares me if we're gonna try and play it live because like it's very raw. Like it's very like you're not picking at a scab. It's like you've ripped it off and you're cutting it open bigger and like there's just sometimes where it's hard to imagine how to do that night after night after night, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure.
I want to ask you about violence. So there's this wild, like fluttering texture to it, and then there's this high speed shrieking, like it's a viola or like a really wild banshee vocal type of thing. Like, how did you come up with it? What is that?
So, a lot of the manipulation of sounds actually derives from guitars on this record.
Okay.
I am a maniac. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. I like the amount of amps that are just behind me there is a bit of a problem. I am a hoarder when it comes
Okay.
to musical gear. But also I find really out of the box ways to use stuff. Whether it's taking it apart and like rewiring it so that you're missing this specific thing, or just like using it in a way that you wouldn't normally do. And that's another thing that Brett's fucking awesome about because he thinks the same way. So there's some stuff that's in there where I know, just across the record, like not even just for violence, but in different things where like there's, you know, let's say 20 guitar tracks on it, but you can recognize that it's probably 6. The rest of it is manipulating of different things or like, okay, we're gonna hit this one note on this sampler that's going to hold the note, and now we're going to manipulate the time with the delay pedal, but we're also going to turn on a trem pedal at the same time, so it's chopping it at different rhythms, so it sounds like that's what's going on. So that's a lot of what's going on there. There's certain parts where we've kind of mixed in little vocal things or little hooks underneath of stuff that we will then do the same thing to, whether we're manipulating it with like gear that's within the computer or physical gear that we've done that with, and then running it through a distorted amp or whatever it is. So without speaking very directly to that exact sound, that's a lot of where it comes from, is experimenting, but it's a lot of guitar. A lot of like there's a little bit of piano here and there on the record. There's some strings like here and there on the record. But for the most part, it's like if you're hearing the sound, it's bass, it's guitar, it's drums, it's vocals. And we take a lot of pride in that, but it's also a lot of fun to be like, how the fuck did you make that sound? It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you because that's my secret, you know, but you know, to kind of answer that question, like it derives from the guitar.
Yeah. Well, it's great that he's into the same stuff as you guys, because you could say stuff like, it should sound like Jarbo, but not the high school poetry type stuff, you know, and he'll go, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about, you know.
I want the Morrissey without the Morrissey. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it almost seemed like you would hit like a knocked loose level of violence, and then it would be like this interlude that messes with you emotionally in the best way possible. So, yeah, it was. Was that like in the DNA in the song from the beginning, or did it just kind of organic? Yeah.
That concept, I think, is in the DNA for a lot of what we do. That's not to say that our songs are manically unpredictable or math rock or anything like that, but we did set out to do some stuff that would be a little unsettling. There's parts where like we're purposely bending a note out of tune, so it's out of tune from the rest of what's going on to give you that bit of uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like what I call headphone candy on the record where that happens a lot more, where like you'll hear like an ominous, almost like low synthy sound that's a guitar, but it's just out of tune. So it doesn't quite need it. You know, like when everybody's playing along and someone's like a quarter of a turn
Right.
out of it. Like we
Right.
were doing that on purpose. And I think that there's a lot of parts on the record where that, you know, like that jarringness gets enhanced by the fact that something was either uncomfortable right before or is uncomfortable right after. And it's you're not consciously thinking about it. But the idea of like trying to do these things, like making the big parts as big as possible, making the quiet parts as delicate as possible, but making these changes that aren't necessarily the thing you expect next to happen. Let's do that, but also do it in a way where after people are like, ugh, before they get to it. And I think we achieved that in a pretty interesting way, but it's
Yeah.
always been a part of like what we're trying to do. You know, if we're writing a hook, we're writing a hook, but we're not trying to write a hook and also make a 9-part harmony Bee Gees style, which I would love to do, but would never get away with. But it's like the little things
Yeah.
that we can do to add to it or to subtract from it. You know, like that's definitely in our DNA. Like that's not going anywhere for the entirety of this band.
Should we play our game?
Yep.
All right, so we play a game on the show. It's called 5 Random Questions with Stace. That's me. So I have 100 questions before me. I want you to pick 5 numbers, and those will correspond to the random questions.
Okay. Do you want me to pick the 5 numbers right now, or do you want me to? Okay. 6, 18, 12. You set up to 100?
Yes.
99, 88, 77. I think I picked 6.
You did.
Okay, 99, 88.
Okay.
Cool.
I have to implore my Dr. Seuss pen. Number 6. Who's your favorite villain of all time?
I love Batman. So it would probably be something in there. Obviously, like if we're going into Batman movies, how do you not talk about the Joker just across the board? I don't care who's playing it. So that would be the easy answer. The hard answer would be a lot more politically charged. So let's just stick with the easy one. I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
I can't imagine who you're gonna be talking about, but okay, yeah.
Oh, there's just so many.
Well, we always say like whenever like in the US, like we'll have like a government shutdown, you know, and it's this big fear that like that if this isn't resolved by X date, then the federal workers aren't going to get paid. I always say they're in a back room with cigars and brandy arguing about who's going to get a fucking private chef. That's what that is, you know. So
Oh, for sure.
that's my punk rock vibe on government shutdown. Give me a break, you know. You can't tell me that like they're in there fighting for the integrity of their party. It's all a joke. I mean, come on, you know.
I 100% agree.
All right. 18. Are you afraid of the dentist?
Yes, pretty badly. I will say, I have the best dentist in the entire world. I'm not kidding. I was like the kind of guy that would be like, you'd poke me with a needle and I would jar and like, grab the dentist's arm or whatever. I had a wisdom tooth taken out 3 months ago by my dentist, not the like guy that's supposed to do it, because he kind of looked at me. He's like, I bet you I can do it in like 35 minutes. Are you cool with that? And I was like, all right. Gassed me the fuck up, ripped the tooth out, stitched it all up. I was done in 35 minutes. It was amazing.
Wow.
But also, he just has the right attitude. He's like cracking jokes. He's not 800. He's not like trying to pull a tooth out that doesn't need to be there. He's just cool. But he even knows that I'm like nerved out. Like I sit down and I'm very stiff and I'm like, okay, you're gonna give me a cleaning, I guess. Like I fucking hate
Yeah.
it. But he's great. He's
I hate
he's
it.
the redeemer.
I hate it. And they look at my tattoos and they're like, oh, you're fine. It's not anywhere near the same level of pain.
You can't
Not at
see.
all.
That's the problem. I can't see what's going on. You give me a TV that's showing me what you're doing, I'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
Like and when they pull blood out, I'm just watching. Like I don't care. But you can't anticipate the pain that's coming, right? So it's
Right.
shocking every time.
Yeah, I have to go in for an implant next week. I'm scared to death. I mean, they're gonna
Ugh.
drill into my mandible. I can't wait. That's not the same as the tattoo. Okay,
Not even close.
not even close.
I'm with you. I'm with you on
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
12. Are cemeteries creepy or calming?
I feel like both. The idea that we just take a body and put it into the ground is insane to me. Especially nowadays, take everything that's good. If the kidney's working, give it to somebody else. Like, why is this a debate? But also the amount of land that's taken up, which is not even dead bodies there anymore, just like the handles from the coffin underground, is fucking wild to me. Like we have, I mean, I can't speak for everywhere, but in Toronto, we have such a housing issue here that like the amount of housing that could be solved by building over top of things that don't even matter, but it's also kind of cool. Like when you see tombstones and it's like 1842, you're like, that's fucking wild. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty rare to see a tangible proof that the Earth has been alive for however many hundreds or thousands of years, and that's a really easy way to see it. Especially when you're through the states, like some of the southern states, you pass a cemetery and it's like bigger than the town I grew up in. But also, like if you're seeing tombstones from like 17 something, which is just like
Yeah.
like it kind of blows your mind a little bit. But I don't think we need to do that anymore. I think we've grown out of this. Like let's help each other. Let's give away the good things and then like throw the rest in the garbage. It doesn't matter.
We're
Yeah,
cremate.
what's the deal with New Orleans? They can't bury the dead, right?
Because it has to be above ground because you can't dig. You'd be underwater.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so in New Orleans, everything has to be like a mortuary kind of thing. Yeah.
Maybe
And
we
like
should go
crypts
back
and
to
that sort of thing.
ossuaries where you evict the prior skeleton into an ossuary and then just reuse it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. I can get down with that.
Or catacombs. Let's go back to catacombs. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Just build the walls with skulls. It'll hold it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of like to end up like that. All right. Then you went to 99. If I can get to it. There we go. Oh, that's 100. I don't know why I printed on that. 99. What's your favorite room in a haunted house?
There's two. One, if we're going back to my childhood, there used to be a haunted house that was near our place where will remember for the rest of my life my dad getting scared so badly that he punched the guy. So I like that room because that's a really funny memory.
Yeah.
But I think the traditional one, if we're talking like Disney or like kind of like you know what I'm talking about, where we kind of get into that old school like family related one, is I always like the room of mirrors. I think that one's kind of neat. It's kind of fucks with you a little bit. You don't know exactly where you're going, but
Right.
like it's always fun. Yeah, I think that'd probably be my answer.
Always would scare me. Somebody's going to come out of the mirror at any moment.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
also like the odds of that happening are pretty limited, right? So it's always in the back of your head, but it's never a real fear.
And you're kind of scaring yourself. You're like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's still
Oh, wait,
me.
that's what I look like? No, yeah.
Well, I must say, the Hall of Mirrors, you'll see an angle of yourself and you'll be like, my God, I look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. What the fuck? Like, is that what I look like from that angle? Ugh, You can get that in a department store, actually,
Yeah.
Yeah.
88. Do you think Star Wars and metal go together?
I'm going to out myself really badly. I've never seen any Star Wars movie, anything. I have conversations about it at work constantly of people being like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" Which I think is really funny. But very openly, I struggle with a lot of sci-fi and kind of always have. And I know that this exists on top of it, but it just never got me in. My parents were never into Star Wars, so like the optimal time for being exposed to it never happened, and now it's just become funny to me. So now it's like I'm never going to do it.
People are so
Um,
offended. That's hysterical.
they get
Yeah.
really into it, and that's cool. I like when people are like diehard about anything. Like if you're a
Yeah.
diehard fan, like I have a crew of I work a few different jobs, but one of my jobs I have a crew of guys that are really into Dungeons and Dragons. And they come to my restaurant and have lunch before they go play Dungeons and Dragons. And listening to them talk tends to be the highlight of that day
Oh, I'll
because they're
bet.
so
I'll bet.
excited. They're
Yeah.
so into it. It's gotten to the point where I want to learn how to play. I just don't have the time involved to be able to do it. But I love when these guys come in because they're like, oh, like Barry's doing the storyline this time. I wonder what he's going to throw into. Like, they're just so into it. And like,
Yeah.
I'm like that with music. I don't get to share that with everybody all the time. But seeing somebody else passionate about something is awesome. So Star Wars fans to me are amazing. They're just also like butthurt when I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Like
Does space involve in metal though? Absolutely. Space and metal, yeah, I'm in. But
oh
yeah.
yeah, like Lovecraft and yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right though, because like I can remember like I can rattle off without looking at anything, all the Deep Purple guitar lineups, all the Black Sabbath changes, but like I'll be at work and I'll say, I saw that one Marvel movie with my daughter. Who was the blue dude? And they'll go, it's Thanos. He destroys the entire
Yeah.
universe. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, like I just
Yeah.
don't care. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they're like, same thing. They're incensed. They're like, he changes humanity. And I'm like, yeah, it's a movie, dude. I mean, come on. Like
But the passion level is
the
what's there.
passion
And that's
level.
what I
Yeah.
love.
Well,
Um,
another thing about that is if it's a show that you're really into, there's a handful that we're really into. You ever like the new season and the new half season comes out and you watch all of it in one night and then the next day you can't tell anybody like
yeah.
they're because you'll be a freak so
Yeah.
you'll be like hey I saw there was a new Ozark season I already watched all 6 episodes it was really great you want to hear about it you can't say that so
I
you have to kind of fake
yeah.
it oh
My
yeah
my version of that was The Last of Us. I
Yeah.
had
yeah oh
played the
yeah
video games
us too
obsessively. I'm not a video game person, to be
yeah
honest with you. I'm not good at it. It takes me forever, but I loved those games. So the first season came out and I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I was like, oh my God, they did this thing that hints at the thing later or whatever. But
yeah
I could not have a conversation about the second season because all I wanted to talk about was how bad it was. And like, I get that not everybody's going to feel that way. It's totally okay. But I loved that game so much, and they went
yeah
so far out of the way to fucking fit all
yeah
this shit in that I was just like, I can't do it anymore. And that's my version of that, of like,
yeah
oh, well, you don't want to hear about this? Okay, I'm sorry. Like,
So I love the marbled green vinyl color that you went with. Was there any significance to it being that color, or was it just atmospheric or kind of tied to the album's themes?
it is a very subtle color that's included in the layout there. Also, because we wanted to do something that's a little bit more eco-friendly, there was certain colors that we were able to choose from that allowed us to do so. But also, like, Jade has its own values of like when you start diving into like as we were talking about with like the term low heaven, like Jade hints at, more calming, more like earthy, more that sort of thing. And we kind of thought that that was an interesting way to tie some stuff together of having this anxiety inducing record pressed on something that is not only like better for the earth, but also is like earth direct in a calming and, almost ironically so color scheme. So, in the grand scheme of it all, what it really was is just trying to find a way to have it match to the record that wasn't doing something bland. And I think that this color is beautiful. but also that was like the little after effect of like, we've spent so much time on all of this negativity. Here's a little hint at something that's not negative, but you're not necessarily going to put that together unless we tell you. So,
Right.
yeah.
Have you seen the videos of because Metallica owns their own vinyl pressing plant.
Oh,
Have you seen the videos of them pouring the speckles in and stuff? I mean, in one way, you're like, all right, well, they're the biggest band in the world, right? But there's got to be some bands that are like, fuck them. I got to wait 10 months for my vinyls to come back. Fuck those guys,
Where,
some people are
yeah,
thinking that, because
I
it's like
can't like,
it's the ultimate circumventing the system. Yeah.
well, 100%. And the thing is that I kind of can't blame them because I got to imagine being in a band for that long, you get interested in a lot of different things. And the amount of vinyl that they've probably pressed that doesn't sound right to them. Like, this is where I'm going with all of this stuff of like,
Yeah.
we've got the money. Let's make sure everything we do sounds exactly how we want it to.
Right. Right.
And why not? I
Yeah.
would do it if I had the money, but also I'd be doing what Jack White does, where it's like, come press with me. If you're a smaller band, I'll just push this through. We need to press 100,000 of mine. We can wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but also like Metallica's Metallica. They're the biggest band on the earth. They're going to play anywhere that has electricity. Like, it is what
Right.
it is. So
Yeah.
I don't think that they give a fuck about what anybody else says. It's just cool. But would I kill to be in that position of like, I'm going to pour a little bit of orange in here? Yes, I
Yeah.
would love that. I have way too many records for my own good. I would have the best day doing that. I would never leave. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know. Yeah.
yeah,
So it kind of cuts both ways. Yeah.
I end up
exactly.
looking like what was those things that you poured paint into and spun it?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know so much.
Yeah, that's probably what they
The
were
paint spinner.
looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will see you at the Auto Bar in July
Yeah.
here in
Oh,
Baltimore.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Tan and Handsome, tell me about how that came together. It kind of sounds like it could be I don't know. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, so very truthfully, our booking agent it has a bunch of experience with this band, and he was like, these guys would be a great fit. Check them out. I know that they're down to do the dates that we were looking at. Let me know. I took a very quick listen. I sent it to the boys. They were all pretty excited about it. I tend to not, as we were saying before, with like stuff that we're making, like once it's done, it's done. I'm on to the next thing. I'm way more interested in seeing a band played live. Don't get me wrong, I'll listen to music all day, every day. But when I heard this band, I was like, they're either going to be absolutely crazy live or they're going to be dog shit. Like, there's no in between. And then when we started talking to a few friends of ours of like, hey, we're thinking about doing this tour with this band, everybody came back being like, oh, they're so good live. You guys are going to love them. And so at that point, it was like, okay, let's do this. And we've chatted a bit back and forth here and there, on Instagram or whatever it is. They seem like kind of the nicest people, which is always a great like side to everything. But once we announced the tour, we had a bunch more people being like, oh, this is a great fit. Like, you guys are going to tour really well together. It's two different versions of heavy, but like, you guys are going to get along super well, and they're so good. And so the fact that that keeps getting going through has made us more and more excited about it. Versus sometimes like when you're doing a tour, you're like, okay, like this band makes sense, but like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, and we're actually pretty lucky in this band that we've never really been too much in that position. In my band previous to this, we did a lot of tours where it was like, oh, okay, we'll do it, but like, this is only to benefit us. It's not like we're excited about it. Whereas like, since the starting of Low Heaven, it's pretty rare that we play a show where like the bands aren't good. Even if we're playing in Toronto with some other Toronto bands, like there's like we were talking about before, there's just such great music here that you're not getting let down.
Yeah.
And so that's really nice. But when your friends start vouching for another band that you've never played with before, and they're like, oh, they're amazing, like that bumps a level of like,
Yeah.
um, just like a level of seriousness that they're like, oh, all of these other people that we know and trust and love love this band. Oh, we're good. Like, this is going to be great. And so the anticipation has just been building and building since we announced the tour of like, oh, we're just so excited to see them now, just as music fans, let alone being on a tour with them. So it's really exciting.
That's great.
I was thinking if you guys had to make a name like that, like Tan and Handsome, would you guys be like pale and cursed or emotionally swollen?
There is a band from up here that existed in the early 2000s called Cursed. who were the loudest
Oh, I know
fucking
them.
band ever. You know who I'm talking about then.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a very big fan of theirs, so I would err on the side of caution of not using that word just because like the
Right.
association between those bands. But
Yeah.
I don't know, Pale would be in there for sure. None of us really like being in the sun that much, and it's Canada, so we get about 8 minutes of it. But yeah, you're not
Yeah.
far off. Maybe Pale and Tired. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, so truly important question. If you could have a completely no holds barred backstage rider with no budget, no shame, what would be on your dream list? Crystal Skull vodka, horror DVD box set.
Honestly, probably not much. We're pretty low key. The thing I wish we could get all the time is fruit that's not in season, which is a really lame answer. But if I could get peaches in season in February, I would absolutely do that. That sort of thing is kind of more where we come from because we're pretty laid back. The one thing I would get kind of weird about is like coffee from a weird region. Like I had a friend very recently buy me coffee from Honduras, and it's the first time I've kind of dove into that world, but I was shocked at like first off how much I liked it, but more how much more I wanted to try from that area. So it would probably be something weird like that of like I want fresh coffee from this small island close to Costa Rica, but it is Colombian and I want that now. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's probably more what it would be. Like no one's gonna give a shit if we get some kind of like, oh well, we've got this vodka from whatever. Like the band is gonna be like, all right, is there juice? Like it's not the same thing
Yeah.
as it used to be. Um, I know some of the other guys would be some other things like Alex, like menthol cigarettes because we don't have them up here. That would be one of those ones of like we got to have good menthols because they're illegal in Canada. But yeah, like it's more about like, can the food not come from Walmart? Can it come from somewhere real? That's probably
Yeah.
more what
Yeah.
it would be directed at. Like
Falling on deaf ears.
Okay, Deaf Ears one.
This is Blood Vulture. Die close. Die close sounds like a strange request. Well, if you must die, die close to me so that I can love you to the end, because I'm selfish. I guess it makes sense to an immortal 1,000-year-old vampire. Eternal life seems a lot less sexy when you've lost everything you've ever loved, even that one fashion trend you were really into, and it all becomes a free-fall descent into madness. Enter the shadowy crypt of Blood Vulture, a gothy sludge metal project out of not-so-ancient New York City. Spearheaded by Jordan Olds, aka Gwarcinio Hall, the corpse-painted host of the heavy metal YouTube show 2 Minutes to Late Night.
On this debut, Olds here trades in punchlines and musical parodies for punctured jugulars. These are 10 original tracks, most nestled into the goth proper Time to Lament 3 to 4 minute range. Aside from the brief intro and interlude, it's a concept album with every track presented as a page from the memoirs of a very specific vampire. To deepen the lore, Olds teamed up with effects artist Callie Harris to create Montauk, a sarcastic undead Transylvania accented vamp cursed to serve his unforgiving master, a reclusive vampire slowly unraveling in a world that won't stop changing, finding love only to lose it to death, even his houseplants for Satan's sake. That introduces each of the music videos.
And Embrace in the Flood was the first track to draw my blood. Even the title carries the air of hopelessness, doomed love because the embrace only hastens the end. It's giving a serious she's a brick and I'm drowning slowly energy. The song opens with a synthesizer line that bounces like neon balls in slow descent, rebounding in soft cascades that continue to bubble beneath the track. When the guitars arrive, they do so in layers, one grimy and heavy, the other wailing long notes steeped in regret. Together, they form bittersweet harmonies, part sludge, part sorrow. The drums keep a mid-paced doom cadence, each stickfall adding weight and tension, while cymbal crashes season the track like salt and pepper. Old's vocals are commanding and smooth as velvet-draped grunge. His voice informs, but flows like drawn butter. He lingers on each word like he's letting a caramel dissolve on his tongue, occasionally cracking with emotion, moving into rich vocal harmonies in the chorus. As the track builds, the drums begin butterfly kissing their way into blast beats. The guitars shift lower and snarl with smutty, rapid-fire note fluctuations. Then it all pulls back for a plaintive solo, tinny, fingers flying over the frets. As the final chorus returns, you can feel it moving your body, lurching stacked vocals, grungy guitar surges, and smart, intentional stick work, guaranteed to have you singing along with those tear-jerking words and hook-filled melody. Have you come to bleed? I was born to grieve by your side.
I'm sure Olds has a lot of musical connections in his veritable Rolodex. For millennials, that's a paper Ferris wheel of contacts we used before cell phone contact lists existed. I mean, the house band for 2 Minutes to Late Night is Mutoid Man, for coffin's sake. But I have a feeling he selected his guests on the album carefully, each cameo injecting more personality into the proceedings. Appearances by Kristen Hayter, Brian Fair, and Jade Puget feel carefully selected. In Gray Morning, already a thought-provoking play on words, Olds' vocals walk a tightrope, carefully timing each note. The bass moves like a hot honey, equal parts gooey and spicy, while the drums shift from blast beats to doom breakdowns like a Cuban coffee-fueled telltale heart, frantic, calming, and then wired again. The guitar riffs growl like a deep rumble strip, and Puget's touch brings the signature AFI tension, punchy, dramatic, and fuzzier than a freshly picked peach. Solos spiral in and out like swamp gas, and the mid-track groove, where doom smack drums lock in with churning, low-throbbing riff, absolutely essential listening. Let's hear a little. This is Gray Morning.
And Entwined, a duet with Hayter, aka Lingua Ignatoa, Latin for unknown language, fun fact. Things get deliciously operatic. It opens with synth notes that plink like raindrops, but there's an emotional weight like they're falling on a cake that someone left out in the rain. Cue gothic MacArthur Park vibes. Hayter and Olds trade verses before fusing in a duet that's pure gothic opera, brimming with drama and sorrow. Her soprano vibe is a perfect foil to Olds' smooth baritone, sometimes entwining like ivy on brick, sometimes reaching out like a tendril from the dark. Lose my face, but not my bite. One of the most telling lines on the record. The anonymity is one thing, but the hunger, that's permanent. The drums are battle-ready thuds with a kick drum at the ready. A short cascading guitar solo steps in, telling its own story of anguish, one string pull at a time. But the best moment? When the bass gets thick and gloopy like barbecue sauce settling into a groove, with the guitar metallic, greasy, like a freshly fired gun barrel, while the drums pound out pure stick seduction.
It's hard not to mention A Dream About Starving to Death, with its layered vocals that sound run through a vocoder in the intro. The repeated line, every night I'm dreaming that I'm starving to death, every day I'm gasping for breath, becomes a mantra, making the listener feel what it must be like for this vampire trapped in a never-ending loop of gnawing, unfulfilled need, while the release of death remains elusive. Olds plods out each word sticky and smooth, like bourbon on silk, dragging the despair just a little longer. The guitar melody circles back like a horn-like refrain, while the drums reinforce the trudging, inescapable pace. Mid-track, the song opens up like the drums just slammed a Red Bull and the guitar lets out a wail like a barnyard animal, eventually blooming into shimmery harmonies that float like soap bubbles. By the song's end, that same vocal mantra collapses in layers, with lines falling over each other like a fever dream. The harmonies give way to an organ stuck on a single haunting note, which I can only assume is played by Montag, our ever-suffering, ever-snarky vamp.
Old saved the best for last. Die Close Finale is my favorite track and a damned masterpiece. Thick, hip-moving bass lines tuck under a blanket of pulsing riffs and drive-force drums. The vocals build into a chorus of male and female leads, like the final number in a gothic musical. Olds channels the vampire's anger at death, spitting, "If it's left up to me, I won't give you away. If it's left up to me, I won't dig you a grave." It's a refusal to let go. Part love letter, part threat, part rant. This track is a beast on all fronts, and when it ends, you linger with it, or maybe it lingers with you. The guitar solo is a note-dense but never cluttered, full of long haunted wails that feel Bram Stoker level cursed. And in the final moments, everything drops away, but a chorus harmonizing a cappella like a vampire gospel choir. It's soulful, captivating, closer, packed with sonic and lyrical embodiments of love, loss, rage, and the sarcastic blood-soaked diary of Montague. Jordan Old shares his thoughts. "My favorite grunge bands were bringing this very specific, distinct vocal style over to what, to them, was the heaviest music. I wanted to push that further with death metal and sludge metal influences and to make it feel as authentic as possible." Mission accomplished. Die Close is cinematic and cathartic. Part concept album, part horror movie, part therapy session for the undead. It's like Typo Negative, Montique would definitely approve, moved in with Yob, and wrote an album with Queensryche. And now that they're heading out on tour, I may just have to throw on my best Elvira dress and slink over to the Auto Bar. I wonder if they allow crowd surfing with lit candelabras. Final verdict, not a gimmick, just a really, really good goth doom metal crisis core record from a guy who gets it and bleeds it. Let's play a clip. This is A Dream About Starving to Death.
Okay, that first two.
This is Snörkler with Slevin Slongs. Say that 4 times fast.
Mm-hmm.
A few months ago, we reviewed a cool Memphis punk band called Big Clown, and now we're ankle deep in with another wacky outfit. Snörkler, a 5-piece that describe themselves as Memphis costume party punk freakazoids. The band describes Slevin Slongs as the tasty first EP from your favorite Memphis dipshits. Who are we to argue?
This groovy cassette offers 7 slongs that span 16 minutes, packed with the hyperactive guitars of Darby and Jesse, scribbling and skronking furiously. Drummer Deems can be found hammering cymbals and toms almost as if there was some kind of pattern to follow. It may seem he's actually quite good, but that's exactly what this posse would want you to think, so don't. Then there's vocalist Haley, shrieking, wailing, hiccuping, and maniacally laughing. She's kind of like your favorite ASMR squeaky toy, but fronting a band. Their scribble outside the line style reminds me of something like Vivisic from Japan at times, or a toddler having a meltdown in a crowded mattress store. Basement Studio offers fun house organs, slashing guitars, weird arpeggios, and lots of stream of consciousness stop-start screams from Haley about rock and roll and, well, Basement Studios. I just hope she didn't skimp on the waterproofing. This is a little bit of Parasite.
The gloriously titled ROFL Copter kicks off a surfy intro riff and vocal spasms through some noisy guitar vamps and breakouts from bassist Christy. Sleepy Core is the closest track to classic punk rock. It's the grab your air guitar slasher that'll have you whirling around the parking lot, confusing all of the Verizon store patrons. Pirate of Your Sea is the longest track at nearly 6 minutes, rolling out a sulking bass line, Hailing muttering, You can't catch me with those tentacles. Then the guitars kick with a doomy low-end riff that lopes along, occasionally stumbling through drunken carnival interludes as Haley expresses her disapproval towards cephalopods. Eventually, it slams into a moth-friendly tempo, Deems using all 8 arms, the way any good drummer should.
It's wild and it's jumpy, and the whole thing is over by the time your Grubhub order arrives. Also, be sure to check out the 4-way split Peacocking in Memphis, which can be ordered over at What's for Breakfast Records, and it features Snörkler, Big Clown, God Milk, and Bluff City Vice. I just ordered mine, so I won't be able to afford guacamole this week, but it seems well worth it in the long run. Let's close it out with a little Pirate of Your Sea. Okay, Deaf Ears today.
Deaf Ears 3 is Juanita and Juan with Jungle Cruise. I'm going to brush my teeth with gasoline to get your taste out of my mouth. I'm going to set your clothes on fire. I'm going to fumigate my house. And so begins the first track on the album, Aftertaste, an electrifying combination of 80s style synths, sexy percussion, and deadly venomous breakup lyrics. It's engaging, over the top. It's a little funny, especially when Juanita states she has all of his passwords. Wouldn't it be a shame if they were leaked? Juan responds, "Don't do me like that, baby."
Who are Juanita and Juan? Nothing short of 2 punk rock legends. Alice Bagg of the infamous LA punk band The Bags, remember the first Decline of Western Civilization album? And Kid Congo Powers of the Cramps, Nick Cave, and the Gun Club, no less. The interesting thing about this album to me is I had no idea it was these two when I first heard the song. I just thought it was catchy, cool, and different than pretty much anything else on my playlist for the show this week. So let's hear a little bit of Aftertaste.
You leave a bad, bad aftertaste, but I can return the flavor. Yeah, I think that it's my turn to give you something to savor.
It's a style of music the duo has called Loud Lounge. Very interesting and addictive. Some of the lyrics are delivered in Spanish, but are no less catchy or danceable. Ven a mi sounds like it was crafted on an 80s Casio keyboard, and the back and forth between these two, along the occasional guitar skronk, made this one impossible to turn off. Powers especially, borderline hokey Don Juan on steroids delivery. It's the law of attraction and action. Come to me. I feel you here already. There's more bossa nova charm on offer in the form of Crocodile, an ode to the deadly reptile with lines that must have been hard to deliver with a straight face. Oh, your bite is what I like.
DBIMGWD stands for David Bowie is my gateway drug. The story of how young, misfit Alice unlocked her inner freak flag once exposed to the Starman's music. Finally, there's the Prez. Powers telling the story of how he anointed himself president of the unofficial Ramones fan club and all of the features and benefits that came with such an enviable position. It's fun, kind of minimalist, different, and slightly cheesy in the best kind of way. Their Bandcamp page says limited edition colored vinyl. So head over to the In the Red Records page and grab this and maybe some Raining Sound and J Retard vinyl while you're at it. Let's play a clip. This is The Prez.
Here comes the press. Yeah, that's me. Here comes the press. Just sign up over there with the secretary.
And there it is. The fantastic why, and people like to glue things all over their cars.
Yeah, I think they're running out of ideas when we're having, television shows based on video games. It seems to be more and more the thing.
It's true.
There's no new ideas, so they have to just glom onto other people's ideas or redo other bad ideas because it was a bad idea to begin with.
I was thinking about movies that I really like that I would have loved a sequel to that they never did. Office Space. They could have brought all those characters back. I would have totally liked another Office Space. The Birdcage.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have another Birdcage. It's too late now, of course. But it seems like the ones that you don't want back are always coming back. It's just ridiculous. This has been the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast. Special thanks to Dan from Lowheaven for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme courtesy of Jens Cameron of the Firebombs. Deaf Ears theme by Tim Green of the Fucking Champs. Season 4 artwork courtesy of KC Angel. Deaf Ears bands featured this week. Check them out. Snörkler, Blood Vulture, Juanita, and Juan. All content 2025, the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.
So, do you know what kind of glue I can use for garden gnomes the car? Or how about ducks the car? Or lambs the car? Oh!
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.